구원해준 나의 천사 나의 세상 난 이상 새 고향이 널 만나러.
There's my voiceover in the background, so feel free to mute if you had preferred to watch silently. Ryan stepped out of the classroom, the weight of detention still lingering on her shoulders. She had been held back for talking back to the teacher again. A chewing gum popped between her lips as she chewed with mild defiance. She walked across the quiet campus, her boots crunching on the gravel. As she reached the school's parking lot, her eyes lit up. Her friend was already waiting beside their bike, the sky behind them painted in soft golds and purples. Karaoke? Her friend asked with a grin. Wyan nodded instantly, brushing her hair behind her ears. I have to, she sighed. I need to scream my stress out. The two laughed, hopping on their bikes. Together they rode into the deepening evening, chasing neon lights and loud music. When they reached the karaoke house, the city lights behind them faded into pulsing neon. Inside, the room welcomed them with glowing panels and soft soundproof walls. It was their world for the night, a place to scream, sing, and forget everything. Ryan picked the first song, grinning as she beat kicked in. She and her friend sang with wild energy, their voices tangled with laughter. They danced without rhythm, screamed the chorus, and lost themselves in the freedom only loud music could offer. By the time their voices turned hoarse and the air felt heavy with heat, they collapsed onto the couch, breathless. Ryan sipped from a cold drink, her head resting back, eyes tracing the ceiling's tiny lights like constellations. Her friend scrolled through the tablet, searching for another track to yell out. The screen lit up, her face focused and eager. I'll go to the restroom and come back, Ryan said slowly, rising to her feet. Her friend nodded without looking away. Ryan walked down the dim hallway, the air still warm from the chaos of the karaoke room. Her steps were slow, each one echoing faintly against the floor. Her head hung low, shoulders loose with exhaustion, a soft sigh slipping past her lips. Suddenly, a door clipped open to her right. Someone stepped out, turning away just as she paused. Her shoulders hit theirs with a dull thud. Startled, Ryan looked up, her lips already parting to apologize. Then paused as someone caught her eye. A phone lay on the floor between them. Its screen lit up instantly, casting a soft glow on the tiles. She blinked, brow furrowing, gaze fixed not on the person but the image glowing back at her from the lock screen. She looked up slowly. Jungkook, her classmate, though they never really spoke. He was known but unreadable, rich but strangely reclusive. He stared back at her, then looked out on the phone. He took a step, but she was quicker. She bent down, fingers curling around the cold glass before he could react. The moment she turned the screen toward herself, her breath caught. The lock screen photo showed Jungkook posing as if unaware of being photographed, but that wasn't what froze her. Behind him, blurred but unmistakable, was her, Wayan, mid laugh, her eyes squinting from the flash, hands making a peace sign as she leaned toward the lens. The photo was at least a year old, but she remembered none of it. Her eyes rose to meet his, and he looked away almost instantly. There was a hint of tension in his jaw. He said nothing. She tilted her head, the corner of her lips tugging upward. A teasing smirk bloomed slowly across her face. You think you're smart, huh? Her voice was slow, amused, coated with just enough challenge to make him blink. Her tongue briefly peeking out, sliding across her bottom lip, her smirk deepened. Jungkook shifted forward, his voice tight. Give that back, his hand moved, but not confidently. She stepped back, casually tucking the phone behind her. She stood straighter, shoulders squared, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Her hand stayed behind her back. No one knew who Jungkook really was. Not the teachers, not the students. To the world, he was just another rich boy. But Wayne was now holding something different. A tiny piece of a secret, trembling at the surface of his carefully guarded life. What are you doing with my picture, huh? Wayne's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. She wasn't here to blush or giggle. She wanted answers. Jungkook blinked, clearly startled. What? No, he said, too quickly, voice rising as if defending himself in court. His eyes were wide, face flushed, unsure whether to run or explain. But Wayan wasn't letting go of the moment, just yet. Then why am I smiling in your screen lock? She asked coolly, holding the phone up for him to see. Her voice was calm, but her stare was unblinking. Jungkook flinched, then suddenly lunged and grabbed the phone back. He shoved it into his pocket, avoiding her eyes like the truth might spill out if he held her gaze too long. But he still said nothing. Vyas took a confident step closer, her chin tilted, eyes challenging him with quiet boldness. Jungkook instinctively stepped back, a nervous gulp rising in his throat. She smirked. If you move, I can walk past you and mind my business, she muttered, brushing by him without waiting for permission. Jungkook shifted aside immediately, clearing the way. As she disappeared down the hallway, the tension he had been holding finally snapped. Jungkook let out a heavy breath, running a hand down his face. His heart was racing. Slowly, he pulled out the phone, stared at the screen, and changed the lock image. The next morning, Wayan walked into her classroom, eyes sharp with purpose. She dropped her bag on the desk with more force than necessary, her gaze already drifting to the back of the room where Jungkook sat, pretending not to notice her. He didn't look up at first, but the sound of her bag hitting the table echoed, making him glance over. His eyes met hers for a second before he looked away, a smirk coursing over her lips like he had been caught thinking too much. She nodded once silently before taking her seat. The class began, the teacher's voice filling the room. Wayan scribbled half-hearted notes until something tugged at her. An odd feeling. She turned around and sure enough, Jungkook was already staring at her. Their eyes locked for a half a heartbeat before he looked away like a guilty child. She turned back to face the board, but her mind stayed behind. A few seconds passed before she glanced back again. He looked away just in time, too late to hide it. Lucy, her friend, caught the exchange. What's with him? She asked under her breath. Wyan didn't miss a beat. Apparently, he has my picture on his phone, she said casually, her tone dry. Lucy's eyes went wide as she gasped. Apparently, it's his lock screen, Wyan added. Lucy gasped again, louder this time. Apparently, I bumped into him yesterday at the karaoke house and saw it myself, Wayne continued. Her words made Lucy turn slowly toward Jungkook, who instantly turned his head toward the window like it might save him. Apparently, I'm smiling at the camera in the picture. Wayne finished, her voice calm, amused, maybe a little curious. Whoa, Lucy breathed, sitting back as if her mind had been blown. Apparently, I want to know what business he has with me. Lucy leaned closer, whispering with a devilish grin. He's loaded, Wayan. Why don't we make him spend that money on us? Clothes, food. Wayan turned to her with raised brows, lips curling into a grin. Lucy, finally you used your brain, she muttered. Lucy giggled at the price. Wait, Jungkook, Wyan said suddenly, spinning around in her seat. He was now leaning on his desk, face hidden behind his crossed arms like a kid trying to disappear from the world. As the lecture ended, chairs cracked and chatter filled the room. Students hurried out, flooding the hallway in packs. Jungkook was quick to move, slinging his bag over his shoulder, clearly trying to vanish before anyone could call him out. Lucy stood stretching with a yawn. Cafeteria? She asked. Why didn't move? Her eyes followed Jungkook's retreating figure. She tilted her head, lips parting just slightly before she let out a sharp whistle that cut through the noise. Jungkook froze, his back stiffened. Slowly he turned around. Wyan sat at her desk, cool as ever, already staring at him with that unreadable expression. She curled her fingers in the air, motioning him over like she owned the space. Come here, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Lucy blinked in confusion, then grinned as she caught on. Two burgers, two milkshakes, and some candies. Wyan said smoothly, eyes now on Lucy, who nodded in silent agreement. Then Wyan turned her gaze to Jungkook. Give the money to her. Her tone was calm, deliberate, and merciless. Jungkook's eyes widened, stunned. Why? Why should I? He asked, voice raising slightly like a child and fairly scolded. Wyan didn't answer with words. She simply stared at him. Eyes steady, blinking wasn't in her plan. It was quiet warfare, and he lost the second he hesitated. Jungkook swallowed thickly, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his black wallet. I don't have cash, he muttered, but Lucy was already one step ahead, snatching the black card from his hand with gleeful gasp. Whoa, Wyan, look, it's a black card, she whispered like she had just won the lottery. Wyan's eyes never left Jungkook. She didn't even glance at the card. Lucy laughed, twirling it dramatically before skipping off toward the cafeteria, leaving the two of them alone in the silent classroom, the air suddenly heavier than before. Sit down, Wyan said quietly, looking up at him. Her voice wasn't stern, but there was something in her gaze that made Jungkook obey without a second thought. He lowered himself onto the chair in front of her, legs spread, nervous energy pulsing. She didn't speak, not yet. The silence made the seconds stretch. Jungkook finally lifted his eyes and spoke, voice low. I randomly got the picture. I thought it was cute and that's why I kept it as my screen lock. Is that all? Wyan asked, her tone unreadable. Jungkook slowly looked up, lips parted. I thought you were cute in that picture, he added. And now he was talking, finally. Wyan tilted her head, leaning toward the desk, her curiosity growing. Did you think of me? She asked, voice softer now. Jungkook hesitated for a second, then answered, you're brave. You don't think twice before saying what you feel, and you. His voice trailed as she leaned in even closer. You're so beautiful. His words fell like a confession, unguarded and real. I swear I don't have any wrong intentions. I'm sorry, he added, barely above a whisper. Wayan couldn't help it. Her lips curved into a smile. Not gonna lie, he was cute. Despite his strong arms and bold image right now, Jungkook looked small, soft, like he was curling under her fingertips without even touching him. Take me out today, she said suddenly. His eyes lifted, confused but glowing with hope. Anywhere you like, she added, rising from her chair. Jungkook stood too, his movements unsure. Like a date? He asked. His voice held wonder. His eyes wide like a boy asking for permission to dream. You can think whatever you want, Wayan replied. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, but before she could leave, he caught her wrist gently. She turned around and meeting his gaze. Can I hold your hand as we walk? He asked softly. She looked at him for a few quiet seconds before nodding. Sure, she said. His bunny smile bloomed so fast, so warm. It made her heart stumble a little. He slipped his fingers through hers and they walked out together, hand in hand. When Ryan finished fixing her hair, a sudden honk echoed from outside. She peeked through her window, heart skipping. Down the street, a sleek black car waited, its surface gleaming like onyx under the early evening sky. Her steps quickened. She stepped outside, catching the sight of Jungkook emerging from the back seat. He wasn't driving, his chauffeur was. The boy himself was the boy himself wore something casual yet sharp, hair brushed back. Ryan paused at the edge of her porch, eyeing the car. He walked toward her, hand outstretched, confident but sweet. She raised an eyebrow, amused. Not bad, she said with a half smile. Placing her hand in his, without missing a beat, Jungkook opened the car door with his other hand. She got in, glancing at him sideways as she passed, the edges of her dress flowing behind. He gently tucked the fabric into the car, carefully smoothing it before shutting the door. Then he hurried around to the other side to join her. As the engine purred softly, the inside of the car filled with silence and air conditioning. Still, Jungkook wiped his forehead, nervous energy buzzing from his every movement. Why noticed her lips curving. Why are you nervous? She asked, turning toward him. I don't know, he muttered, glancing at her, then quickly away, wiping his forehead again. The air was cool, but he still looked flushed. Ryan chuckled to herself and turned her gaze out the window, hiding her smile in the glass.